Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here with Jason Blaha Strength and Fitness, and once again it is time for my client Ted's Conjugate training vlog. But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like and drop me a comment down below, I greatly appreciate it. So we started off with an overhead press and a little lower than his last PR. He managed to get 195 for a max. He's like, yeah, that's pretty much all I had, coach. So he called it there. Keeping in mind, we PR'd several times since I've had him, and he got all the way up to 205 at one point. He's been fairly aggressively bulking here to kind of come up for the weight classes in powerlifting. So let me be clear on that. That is something he wanted to do for weight classes. I have not necessarily advised him to bulk at that rate, but he's also wanting to be in a certain weight class and fill it out. And pretty much we're at a point where I told him we should probably definitely stop gaining weight here and he can recomp from this point. The interesting thing though, even though he's gained significant body weight and some body fat, if you guys saw in the updated pictures, he still has visible abs. So again, I think there's a point to be made for even for the guys who do bulk. Don't want to bulk to the point to where you're actually sloppy fat. So in his case, he still has a visible six-pack. It's not a great six-pack, but he still has a visible six-pack, in the updated photos. And of course, he knows how to get really, really lean quite easily. He's one of those where to gain weight or to even sometimes to maintain, a lot of times he's got to work pretty hard at it, in terms of intake. So for our max effort day, though, afterwards we did back off pause bench work. We did overhead press, we did chins, and then here he is doing some standing tricep extensions. Now again, this is one that he's chosen to work in. I had skull crushers in here, but that's okay. I don't mind him experimenting around a little with arm work. I give him a lot of freedom to work with on arm work, and we rotate tricep exercises. Biceps, I just let him program his own stuff. He has great arms, great biceps, and they don't really affect our strength training, so I let him do what he wants there. It's where I give him definitely freedom to work with. Then for max effort lower, we did sumo deadlift, and then here he is doing a little bit of rep work for back off afterwards with just 405. So again, he ended up doing a 515 for a max there. I believe it was 515. Now we've hit 530 before. So again, he's just kind of truckling along with this. I feel like we have had a decent amount of fatigue on some stuff though after he did have an adductor strain. So we've been talking a lot about keeping his volumes reasonable, because keep in mind, he does a fair amount of training volume. He also does multiple days of GPP, sometimes per week, very high step count. So again, overall activity level is high, but I want people to keep in mind he's a lifelong athlete, former track and field athlete when younger. So his conditioning level tends to be really high. His work capacity is very high. So we give a lot more leeway on volumes. But again, this is something I say as a coach. A lot of times as a coach, we reel lifters back in. For me, as someone who coaches a lot of people who are athletes, serious athletes, I find more than anything with this demographic, I'm usually pulling them back. I'm like pulling them back 5 or 10% from where they want to be, because they'll overreach, right? It's a totally different mindset from a lot of times your average person who needs motivation, they need accountability. No, for the clients like this, a lot of times a lot of coaches learn this. For your athletes, you're usually reeling them back in. They want to add other stuff. They want to do way more stuff than you prescribe them. And so we're usually telling them, hey, no, we got to pull this back in. We got to keep this at a reasonable level. No, we don't need to do this, right? Let's keep everything, down to a reasonable level. Let's back it down a notch, because they'll overtrain, they'll overreach, they'll get hurt. So then for other assistance work, he did good mornings. We do glute ham raises, reverse hypers. I didn't put the reverse hypers in here. Now, I do have him doing machine squats, like on a hack squat machine, once a week in here. I don't think we got footage this week, but I do have him doing it once a week, although he did send me a lot of footage of his GPP. So I may put some of that up as separate shorts and reels. Then as far as the dynamic effort, upper day goes, we do speed bench. And I put a couple different grips. I have him do 3 sets wide, 3 sets medium, 3 sets close. So here he is doing his wider, which is going to be pinkies on the rings, and he does a medium. Then we do close grip, which is going to be right by the smooth. So there we go, pinkies on the rings. And then here is his other extreme of it. So I usually have him start wide and then work his way in over the course of sets. So every 3 sets, we bring it in a few inches. So if you noticed, the other one was right at the rings. This is right at the smooths. And then, of course, his medium grip is, of course, right in the middle. Now, that's as wide as we bench for him. He's not used to really wide benching. And I don't have many of my guys bench as wide as I do. A lot of people will notice I bench real wide. Don't always do that for my clients. All right, so instead of overhead pressing, usually on this day, it's where I work his incline in. So after speed benching, we usually incline. Then you'll notice he's got weighted chins. We've got barbell rows in here. And then he's got curls. So you'll notice he does 2 different types of curls on this day. And I let him, again, just program whatever he wants for curls. Because, again, we're not bodybuilding, and he does what he wants to do for his arms. I'm not overly concerned with it from a powerlifting perspective, because we've got chins, and he's like, well, I want to see if I can blow my biceps up more, coach, since I've been gaining weight and everything. So we've been doing chins, and then he's doing straight bar curls afterwards. So he does that, and then he did some hammer curls this week, which I put footage up of that. Because, I mean, I've had people say, hey, he's got good arms, what's he do for arms? And it's like, what I want people to note, he doesn't do anything specific for arms. He just does lots of sets to failure of different types. He works in a few sets of curls every upper body workout of whatever he feels like doing, and he changes it all the time. And that's, I think, a point that needs to be stated. When it comes to isolation work, you can't really train isolation per se. Just get in and do hard sets. Your big movements you can program, you can look at all that stuff. Isolation work, you're just isolating a muscle as long as stuff's going to failure. The only progressive overload is going to come from when you're able to, right? You don't really program it. You just do reps as you're able to. As long as you're going to failure, you're stimulating all you can. But in this case, he's doing like some cheek curls here with a straight bar. Then you'll see him doing some hammer curls. But he changes it all the time, and yet he still gets good bicep development. And that's kind of the point, I think, with isolation work. I think people overthink that a little bit. As if you can really program it, and you really can't. Just do isolation work to failure, right? If you feel that you need to isolate a muscle, but he changes it all the time. Probably helps prevent overuse, right? It's not about shocking the body. It can be a case of just lower chance of overuse, but he just changes it and does whatever he wants for curls. And I think that's an interesting thing for people to think about. But let's come back over then to the lower body day, so the dynamic effort lower. Same accessories as the max effort day, but we've got speed boxes here, right? So we've got speed boxes, just normal speed boxes here on a box squat with a straight bar. And then we've got our speed pulls. There's a conventional pull, which I'm going to rotate him back over to sumo soon, right? We're going to rotate to sumo soon, but I wanted to make sure his adductor's good before we do that. So we have speed boxes and speed pulls. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.